It's the Go Mike podcast where the mic is golden. This is a podcast. I'm your host, Mark Paul, and today we got Tariq Nasheed. All right, so Tariq Nasheed pulled up to No Jumper for a second interview because he had an interview, I believe it was about a month ago, but he pulls up to No Jumper and sits down with Poetic Flacco. And in this interview, Tariq Nasheed tells the honest to God truth about American Cholo. And if you don't know who American Cholo is, he's basically a YouTuber that has a podcast called American Cholo. And I'm going to go back to his early days in his podcast. It just seemed like a lot of his content was either anti-black or geared towards black negativity. And the way this American Cholo guy ended up being famous was, I guess, viral on YouTube. I'm not going to say famous, but he was viral on YouTube from the noise he made about Tyga and when Tyga made his Caramba music video. So if you heard about that, then you heard about the interview on Power 106 with Tyga and another guy. Well, that's the American Cholo guy. But it was funny to me how the American Cholo guy wanted Tyga to take down the video and practically just call him out, calling him some type of racist. And the American Cholo guy has a history of anti-black racism. And I did a video about American Cholo about a month ago, so I'm gonna go ahead and link it here. So go ahead and check that video out that I made about American Cholo, and I kind of like point out like a lot of his hypocrisies and, you know, some of the anti-black rhetoric that he spilt. But without getting sidetracked, what I'm here today is to watch the video of Tariq Nasheed talking to Poetic Flacco and telling the honest to God truth about American Cholo. And it's funny that I don't think Tariq Nasheed said anything wrong about American Cholo, but for some reason, guess who's mad? Just guess. La Raza is mad. La Raza is mad. I guess because No Jumper gave him a platform to speak again. And from what I gathered, La Raza looks at Tariq Nasheed as if he's like the boogeyman. And I don't know how they got to that point because from what I gather with Tariq Nasheed, pretty much all he does is speak against anti-black rhetoric, So for somebody to have a problem with Tariq Nasheed is basically they having a problem with him speaking against anti-black rhetoric. So let me go ahead and get into the video. And here's the video with Tariq Nasheed and Poetic Flacco on No Jumper. And let's get into it.
Incident happened last month. And we posted up a video of this brother, American Cholo, saying a particular word, coon, etc., etc.
Right.
And I'm going to give a little backstory on that because, they're kind of like showing up in the middle. Okay, so after the American Cholo did his interview with Power 106 with Tyga, and Tyga ultimately taking the video down, there was a clip that was circulating with the American Cholo guy saying both the N-word and referring to black people as coons. And there was a big fuss about it because it made Power 106 take that interview down. So this is what they're talking about, the clip that was circulating with American Cholo saying coon and both the N-word. But so let's continue.
Now he said it was out of context, et cetera, et cetera. So then they pulled up, and he kind of get.
And he always says things are out of context as if people don't hear what they're hearing. He tries to act like, that his anti-black rhetoric is okay. But you bet not say anything, about the Rasa, I guess. But let's go.
Gave more background, and he actually told us that video was actually a response to something Tariq said to him. And you said something like Mexican or something, right?
We weren't talking about him. We were just talking about some stuff in general, and we're kind of roasting.
Yeah, so they were just talking about how a lot of these people from the Rasa, they come over here to the U.S., and they bring along that anti-black ideology, because we all know that La Raza, it basically means to better the race, and for them, bettering the race is not reproducing with black people, but reproducing with white people, making the skin lighter. For them, that's bettering the race. But let's go ahead and continue so I don't get sidetracked.
And this dude, when you get caught being an anti-black racist, which he is, let's just be very clear, he is an anti-black racist. He has several videos where he's denigrating black society. He's talking greasy about black people. And fortunately, many people in the Latino community, they called him out for it.
And that's a fact. When I go back and I look at a lot of the old American Cholo videos, it seems like they could not go an episode without at least talking about black people in a negative light. It's almost as if, we were their content, and a lot of the stuff that was said, if a white person says it, you can consider it being racist. So, he have a history of making anti-black statements and trying to create a smoke screen to cover it up. But let's go.
Like getting called out, so he threw up a bunch of smoke screens and all of this stuff. The bottom line, he got called out for his anti-black racism, and unfortunately, in that culture, there is a strain of anti-black racism within these countries down there that they bring here that needs to be addressed. Because if we're going to,
and that's exactly what I was saying. A lot of that stuff with La Raza, bettering the race, they like to talk about black and brown unity, but a lot of them that like to speak about this black and brown unity, they still claim to La Raza, and the La Raza, they are historically rooted in an anti-black narrative. So for me, I can't look at any Hispanic person claiming La Raza and really believing that they want to create some type of good dialogue with blacks, because if they are representing something like that is rooted in anti-black, I don't see how we can actually have a sufficient relationship, but let's go ahead and continue.
Black and brown unity, the fighting for that cannot be one-sided. It's us, foundational black Americans, usually towing the line for this black and brown narrative. It's always foundational black American organizations towing that line. None of their organizations talk about black and brown. Whenever they get something tangible for them, it's for them.
And that's true. A lot of the stuff that has the cover of being for black people, but when you look at the fine print, pretty much anybody can take advantage of, and nobody says nothing. So, but when there's something specifically for that group, we're not able to take advantage of it. So yeah, he's right. It does seem like it's a one-sided, contribution, because, on our hand, when it's something available for us, everybody get to take from it. But when it's something available for them, only they get to take from it. And to me, that's not fair. But let's go.
We're never included. So we got to get some straightening as far as that. If we want to have a black and brown unity, it has to be a reciprocal thing, because foundational Black American organizations, we've always been fighting for the Hispanic community and all marginalized people, because we don't like marginalization. We don't like.
And that's a fact. One great example is the whole Donald Trump debacle. Black people really did Trump the way we did Trump is because of how Trump was talking about the Hispanics. So, a lot of black people turned their back on Donald Trump because of that. We over here supporting the Hispanic community, saying F Donald Trump, and Donald Trump has never did anything bad to us. He really haven't even said anything bad about us neither. But he said little slick stuff about Hispanics. Yeah, well, we get it. But my point is that when it seemed like Donald Trump was against Hispanics, black people automatically took offense to it and gave pushback to it. So I kind of wonder, if the tables was turned, would they do the same? But let's go.
Type of discrimination, any type of bigotry with nobody. We've been at the forefront fighting for that. If you look at the NAACP, they're always fighting for Hispanic issues. Even now, the Congressional Black Caucus fighting for Hispanic issues. Hell, the damn United Negro College Fund, they got scholarships for Latinos, you see?
And that's all facts. And you got to wonder, why would the United Negro College Fund give scholarships to Hispanics? You got to wonder why. It's because we got their back, but they don't seem to have our backs in the same way. But let's go.
So it's always been this one-sided thing. So instead of them bringing that racism that they practice on the black people and the black Afro-Mexicans and the Afro-Panamanians and all of the black people there, instead of bringing that racism here, learn how to get that out of the way so that we can have an equitable relationship.
You hear what Tariq Nasheed say? He literally is all right. So this is what I'm gathering. There's nothing wrong with us coming together, having a black and brown coalition, but on their side, they have a lot of anti-blackness, and yes, that has to be addressed, because how are you going to have a partnership with somebody that deep down inside really hates you, that don't like you? So how are you going to have a sufficient partnership that way? I don't see how it can go, but let's go ahead and continue.
Yeah. Now, I do want to touch on this. So I believe a protest was done. Mm-hmm. Now, the protest came because I think American Cholo went on Power 106.
Right.
To, I guess, confront Tyga about the caramba video. Now, we kind of glossed over the caramba video in the last interview, but can you just give one, when you watch that video, do you think, they have a right to be offended by the caramba video?
And I'm going to say this, they do have a right to be offended, but I believe that the level that it was they took it to was a bit extreme, because they tried to paint Tyga out to be some anti-Hispanic racist, and that he did all of this to make fun of the Hispanic community. He was so disrespectful, but when you really peel back the banana, you will find that, he didn't have any intentions on being disrespectful. He was literally trying to make a fun video from his perspective on how he see the Latino community. So we got to think about that. It's art, he took it down, but it was reflective of his perspective of that community, even if it was it was tone deaf and it was not culturally accurate, but it still a piece of art from the perspective of the artist, and if that's how he sees it from his perspective, it's like, how could you be really mad knowing that he was not really trying to be malicious? You know, he was just trying to express his art. If it were me, would I have done that? If I did decide to do it, I would, I would probably make sure that it is, culturally accurate. I would probably have a couple of my Hispanic homies to check it out to see, like what parts is good and what parts is bad, and try to make adjustments in between. But really, Tyga didn't mean no harm, like how the American Cholo guy tried to make it out to be. But let's continue.
And then speak on exactly like why that protest happened.
Right. Now with the caramba video, only a few people kind of make noise about it, and the American Cholo dude made noise about it because that was kind of a way for him to kind of throw a smoke screen up to disguise his own anti-black racism.
Which was silly, because as soon as he did that, like, I never heard about this guy before until he popped up with this Tyga situation, and with him, having such strong opinions about what was going on, it led me to go back into the past and look at a lot of his old videos. And like I said earlier in the video, what I found in a lot of his videos was a lot of anti-black rhetoric. But let's continue.
I don't think Tyga was being malicious, but Tyga was a man about it. He said, hey, if I offended somebody, my bad. I'll take the video down. That's commendable. But don't have an anti-black racist up here talking about we shouldn't get reparations as black people and they shouldn't have a black national anthem playing at games. This guy's racist.
Yep, and that's a fact. Like I keep saying, go back and look at a lot of the old American Cholo videos. He may have scrubbed them. I don't know, but I know I've seen a handful of his videos, and I actually see the video that Tariq Nasheed is talking about. It was him and two other dudes. One of the guys' name is Sonny. I don't remember what the other guy's name is, but yeah, they were speaking about if blacks end up getting reparations, then they need to stand up and say something, and like to kind of like put a monkey wrench in it, to kind of like stop it. And it kind of like makes you wonder, why would they want to stop us from growing economically, and it just seems wrong. But let's continue.
It's way more vicious than that video where Tyga was just kind of lollygagging around. So that was the thing. People were looking at Power 106. How are you going to call somebody racist with another racist that you're sitting here holding hands with? So
that's a fact. That Tyga video, if you want to say that it was disrespectful, and it was, I think disrespect comes with intent. I don't think you can accidentally disrespect someone, but with that video being what it is, it does not compare to the type of content that this American Cholo guy was making against black people. But let's go ahead and continue.
Power 106 got called out. One of our sisters out here organized, Connie Collins, shout out to Connie Collins. She organized the protest and made the voices known. Yeah. And that's what it was.
Yeah. Now, so the Power 106 protest, like that, like kind of, that was that, right? So like, right. Is there something particular, like, again, it was her protest, not yours.
It wasn't mine.
Yeah.
But I supported her. Supported her, but it just wasn't mine. So they had other things.
Yeah, I heard Tariq say on I believe it could have been the last No Jumper interview he was on, or he did it on his platform, and he did say that he did not form that protest, but he did provide the security for the protest to make sure the protesters are safe. But let's go.
Going on. I think they had other issues with the hiring at the station because hip-hop culture is foundational Black American culture. Let's be clear. We created hip-hop, every single element of it exclusively. And
you hear him? Hip-hop is a foundational Black American thing. Foundational Black Americans pioneered every element of hip-hop. Do y'all hear that? There is no Latino element in hip-hop. There's not an element in hip-hop that Latinos created. A lot of people are continuously trying to give Latinos the credit that black people deserve. And it's like, why are you guys trying to do this? You guys have your own culture. Don't Latin, isn't Latin, isn't there a Latin culture? Like, why can't you guys just, stick to y'all culture and leave ours alone? It's okay for you guys to enjoy our culture, but to try to claim our culture as if it is y'all's too, or you guys have an equal hand in it, is wrong. Because there's nothing in the history of hip hop that says or even illustrates that Latinos had anything to do with the contribution, pioneered any of the elements of hip hop, or anything like that. Yeah, later down the line, when hip hop was already established, a lot of Latinos did come in, and some of the Latinos did change the game on like things like breakdancing and maybe graffiti. But you gotta remember that black people created breakdancing and graffiti. So I don't care how much somebody put their twist to something, if they wasn't a creator or of that function, they should not try to claim to it as if they are. But let me go ahead and continue.
When we look at the commercialization of hip hop now, especially in radio and other mediums, it's usually non-black people running everything, and black people get shut out of something that we created. So I think,
and historically, this happens over and over and over again. Like, a lot of people don't know that rock and roll was pioneered by black people, but because you see a lot of white people in rock and roll now. So this has always happened to us. Even with the thing with the light bulb, they credit Edison, but there was a black person that created the mechanism that made the light bulb what it is today. It didn't create the actual light bulb, but the functionality of the light bulb, the main portion of that was created by a black person. But do you see black people trying to push Edison out of the way and say, no, black people created the light bulb, even though black people created an intricate part of the functionality of the light bulb? No, we don't do that. Like, we still say Edison created the light bulb, even though there is other pushback about that, but that's here nor there. Let's get back into the video.
The conversation was like, okay, how are you going to have a hip hop station and ain't no black people working up here? Like Nick Cannon, and they got rid of Big Boy. Shout out to Big Boy. That was my brother. My brother. And
that's true. It's like, how are you going to have a radio station that is geared towards black music, the black culture, and not have anybody, little to no people running that radio station? It's like, is kind of weird. It's like, yeah, it seems like they are trying to erase us out of what we created, and it's kind of sad that that's happening. But let's go ahead and continue.
So that was one of the complaints. We have all of these hip hop radio stations and all of this stuff all around the country, and they never have really a lot of black people, particularly foundational black Americans, working there. Yeah. So we're just trying to take back our culture and lay claim to our culture.
We would definitely have the hip hop discussion a little bit later.
Okay.
Right? Because I've seen some cooning go. Well, not even cooning, but because they weren't really black, like Fat Joe and Busta Rhymes having it. Right?
And about the Fat Joe and Busta Rhymes thing, anybody that listens to Fat Joe and Busta Rhymes and really believes that hip hop is black and Latino and Americans don't have a culture, you guys are really lost as a people, and you need to step back and take a look at around you, and really, that's all I gotta say about that. So let's continue.
But I do want to bring it back, though, because I think the discussion about the word coon and why it was, I guess, derogative or wrong, that took place. But a lot of us, we really wasn't educated enough to really break it down and dissect it. Right. So could you do it for the people?
Now, when a black person says the word coon, but just like the N-word, there's different meanings to it. When a black person says nigga, that means I'm a victim of white supremacy. When a non-black person says that word, that means, okay, those black people are inferior to me. So when different people use different words, it means something else. When a black person uses the word coon, we're talking about another black person or another non-white person who's working with white supremacy against non-white people.
Now you hear that? That is the complete opposite of Tariq Nasheed's MO, but for some reason, the American Cholo guy made it his business to call Tariq a ghetto coon, and it just didn't add up because, like he said, a coon is somebody that pretty much works with white supremacists, basically like what the American Cholo guy and a lot of the people from La Raza, But let's go ahead and continue.
That's what a coon is. I had a Coon Train Award show some years ago. We're giving awards to people like Jesse Lee Peterson.
I love that show.
Yeah, Sheriff Clark, and we got to have another one sometime next year. So we're talking about an action when we say the word coon. Now, when a non-black person says the word coon, like Cholo and others, they're talking about all black people.
And that's a fact. Because when I heard, when I just kept hearing like the rhetoric from the American Cholo, and then I seen that he was going after Tariq Nasheed, calling him, like a ghetto coon and stuff like that. I'm just looking at that as this guy is just trying to use Tariq Nasheed as an excuse to disrespect black people, and that's pretty much what he does. He just kind of try to use Tariq Nasheed to talk crap about all black people, but he don't really have nothing to say about Tariq Nasheed. If Tariq Nasheed called him a Mexican, is because he was spitting that anti-black rhetoric, doing the white man's job for him, basically. So for American Cholo to call him a ghetto coon is just unequal, because Tariq Nasheed, he does not go against black people, and coons do. But let's go ahead and continue.
They don't make no differentiation of it. He tried to clean it up talking about, well, I'm talking about you're a coon because you don't live in the ghetto. That's racist as hell, and that don't make no sense. Not living in the ghetto doesn't make you a coon.
Yeah, that is crazy. He sure did say that. His excuse for calling Tariq Nasheed a coon is because he does not live in the ghetto. And that's so freaking messed up, because just because you black, you gotta live in the ghetto. Like, just because you're black, you have to live in the ghetto. That's what he suggests with that. And, people, when they get money, they want to live in, certain types of houses. And sorry to tell you, American Cholo, that if you get a certain amount of money and you want a certain type of house, you're not going to find that type of house in the ghetto, as you call it. You're going to have to go out where those houses are built, because, in different areas, different types of houses are built, So if you want something that is a certain way, and all they have them is in a certain area outside of the ghetto, it doesn't make you a coon because you decided to move out that way. A lot of people is trying to make it out of the ghetto so they can just have a safe environment for their families. It's like, why do just because he's black he has to live in the ghetto? That doesn't make no sense. And I really just don't understand how he believes, the American Cholo guy believes that, he's just, trying to, come at Tariq Nasheed, but he's not giving an equal argument. But let's go ahead and go.
That word coon is reserved for all black people. You're denigrating all black people. And dude got called out for it, and anybody who's non-black using that word towards a black person should get called out for that racist nonsense. See, there's a lot of racism coming from non-white society or non-Anglo, because a lot of people are people of color, but they're still classified as white. You understand? Many East Indians, black as you and me, but if you look at their ID, it's Caucasian. They're classified as white. Kamala Harris is
And that's a fact. I was working for a company doing HR, and when I was hiring people, I literally noticed like people that's from like the Middle East, other people from like India, even some Asians on the ethnic background, they would check white, and it kind of blew my mind. It was like, oh, so these people really think they're white, so but if they're accepted as white, then who's to tell them they're not? But let's go.
others classified as Caucasian. If you look at the
Really?
birth certificate, look at the birth certificate. It's online. You have a lot of
And that's a fact. I got Kamala Harris's birth certificate long time ago, and she was talking about all it is black. I'm black, first black woman. But before she was running with Joe Biden, all the other headlines for her was first Indian woman. But all of a sudden now that she's running with Joe Biden for the vice presidency, now they're trying to say black woman when she don't have no ounce of black in her. It's kind of like Obama don't have no ounce of black in him neither. Obama mother is white and his daddy's from Kenya, so, he does not descend from American slavery. So, he's not one of us. Same with Kamala Harris. Her daddy is Jamaican and her mama is Indian. So, and she's Indian, but she classifies herself as white. So, for me, it was just kind of weird that all of a sudden she wanted to turn black just because, they know how gullible and politically ignorant we are as a people. I'm talking about black people. We're gullible and politically ignorant, and she used that and it worked on us. You got a lot of black people around here talking about, oh, our first black president, when they talking about Obama, and they say our first woman vice president, black woman vice president, when they talking about Kamala Harris, and we haven't yet seen that. I'm still waiting for the first black president. But let's go ahead and continue.
people, and most Hispanics are classified.
I just want to add that Obama did not do nothing for black people in his 8 years of presidency. Let's just put that on the table. But let's go ahead and go.
Is white. They classify themselves as white. A lot of times they won't be honest about that. But when you look at the paperwork, they classify themselves as white. Puerto Rico, that's a black island for the most part. About 80% of the people classify themselves as white on Puerto Rico, an island of Puerto Rico.
Wow.
So you have a lot of people who are people of color, but inside here, they're white. They're just a different shade of white. Mm-hmm.
And that is totally true. You got these African, I'm not going to just say, it's a lot of melanin, people that's full of melanin, that has the ideology of a racist white person, the same type of ideology this American Cholo guy has, that of a racist white person, and in return, all it does is just sets us back. But let's just go ahead and continue.
These white supremacist terms to denigrate us, and we're calling them out for it.
Yeah. Now, I do want to kind of address that, though, right? Now, now, during your last interview, like you had this statement that went super viral. I seen a lot of like the Hispanic community were like quote tweeting it, and kind of addressing you when you say there's no such thing as brown people. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that?
Because they don't classify themselves as brown.
Gotcha.
What's a brown?
And that's a fact, because just think about when you're filling out an application for anything. You see it says white, you see it says black or African American, and then it say Hispanic or Latino. It does not say brown. So that is something that I never realized, but I did realize it when he spoke about that. But let's continue.
We're the only people running around talking about black and brown for real, especially in a political sense. Again, when you look at their ID, they classify themselves as white. Let me tell you something. In the 1930s, there was the U.S. government started classifying Mexican people as their own race. They made Mexican its own race. One of the biggest Mexican-American organizations, LULAC, they fought against that. They fought for the right to be labeled as white. They were like, no, 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 do not make us a separate race. We are white, and we want to fight to be white. They fought for the right to be white.
And I'm not 100% sure about this, but like if anybody have any extra details on this, go ahead and inform us. Let us know. Educate us, because I didn't know this either. I had no clue about this. But let's go ahead and go.
Don't get offended now. Your organizations wanted to be white, and nobody had a problem with it. So own that. Don't play this 3-card Monte game when you come around us. It's a person of color, but in your mind, you still clicked up with the white supremacists. A lot of that stuff happens in prisons. A lot of the Hispanic gangs in prison, they're clicked up with the Aryans and the white supremacists and the skinheads. That's very well known. Let's bring that to the table and talk facts if we're going to have a real black and brown coalition, because we can't have all of this shady stuff going on behind the damn door and then we're skinning and grinning in each other's face.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree that everything needs to be on the table before we can even start a conversation about having unity with each other, because there's obviously some strain in our relationships with each other. So in order for us to get over that strain, we need to address what the problem is, come up with a solution, and then let's try to move forward. But until that happens, I don't believe that we can ever see eye to eye 100% in good faith, But let's go ahead and finish this out.
Kicking it with white supremacists, let me know so I can just rock with you a little bit different. You feel me?
No, so even from like that interview too, right? So after the whole American Cholo thing took place, I believe like a week later, I think it's either American Cholo or a few other like Hispanic folks like started to like recirculate some clips of Tariq from Clubhouse, right? Where
from Twitter Space.
Oh, Twitter Space, where you were going back and forth with a Hispanic person,
and the person wasn't Hispanic. I know the clip you're talking about. That person wasn't Hispanic.
Gotcha.
And you hear this? I've been thinking about making a video about this, because the American Cholo, and shout out to Skip Townsend, the American Cholo invited Skip Townsend on his platform, and in that conversation, they were talking about the differences they had with each other. Cool. But then the American Cholo makes it his business to play Skip Townsend a clip of Tariq Nasheed, and that clip is what they are talking about now, where Tariq Nasheed was pretty much making fun of the person he talked to. He's making fun of their accent, and the American Cholo guy tried to make it seem like that Tariq Nasheed was talking to a Hispanic person, but he was really talking to somebody from Africa. And it kind of just blows my mind how the American Cholo guy can make a big ass fuss about a edited clip of him saying the N-word and him using the word coon, but he made it his business to use an edited out of context video of Tariq Nasheed to try to give Skip Townsend an example of kind of like who Tariq Nasheed is, because Skip Townsend didn't really know who Tariq Nasheed is. And with that being his first impression of Tariq Nasheed, yeah, that kind of makes him seem like, yeah, maybe he is anti-Hispanic, but he wasn't even talking to no Hispanic. He was speaking to a African person, but let's continue.
He's the African dude who called up trying to troll, and I trolled him back. Yeah. The Twitter spaces, those are roast spaces. We reserve that to roast each other and clown each other. They call up and clown me, I clown them back. Mm-hmm. That's different from somebody sitting up here with a serious straight face talking about we're going to protest black people getting reparations. That's something else.
That is definitely something else. That is something that is seems very personal, and it's just like, dude, if you feel that strongly about black people getting reparations, then stop acting like, you're for black and brown unity, because obviously you got something on your chest that you need to get out. But let's go ahead and continue.
Ranking on somebody and they're ranking on me, that's just us joshing each other, which is nothing. That's fine.
Yeah.
We do that to each other. In the realm of comedy and roasting, everything is fair. Just like George Lopez, he goes on tour with black people and he does black jokes, and some people get like, oh, what was that? But we charge it to the game because that's comedy. These are jokes. When you're doing that, Carlos Mencia, remember he had a show where he was kind of going in on black folks and people like, but hey, it's comedy. You can get away with that. So on the Twitter spaces, we're just roasting each other. That's totally different. When we're having a serious conversation about different groups getting certain beneficial things and tangible things, that's something I don't really joke around with. That's a whole different conversation. I've never said anything to harm Hispanic people or to take away from anything that they're getting at all, like Cholo did. Cholo is trying to get resources away from us.
Yeah, he sure is. He's trying to pull an extreme hater move. It's like, why would you try to get in front of something like that? Why do you think you have to protest against black people getting reparations, talking about as a taxpayer, basically you don't want to give black people no money out of your pocket, but you're okay with Joe Biden sending all of these millions and billions of dollars overseas, like how we were going through the crisis with high gas prices. A lot of people didn't know that Joe Biden was selling barrels of oil to China, a country that is just draining us of the U.S. practically is owned by China. But yeah, while our gas prices was sky high, you had Joe Biden selling barrels of oil to foreigners, and it's just like, come on, man. But let's go ahead and try to get through the rest of this video.
Something totally different. He's trying to get hate crimes against black folks and stuff like that. We don't do that type of stuff. So they're trying to make a false.
And that's true. He is trying to get hate crimes for Hispanic people against black people, talking about, how, sometimes that these Hispanic vendors, these street vendors get robbed. And it's sad to say that they are not getting targeted because they are Hispanic. That would make it a hate crime if the people were literally targeting those street vendors just solely because they are Mexican. Yes, it deserves a hate crime, but that's not what that is. People are targeting those vendors because they are a cash business, and that is some fast cash. It's like, duh, anybody with brains know that. If you running an all cash business, you know what I'm saying, and you're practically not documented, you don't have your papers for it, you can't call the police, right? So, because you'll get in a lot of trouble if you do. So it just lends an opportunity because it is a cash business, and that's what that's about. It does not something that is in need of a hate crime bill because there's no hate involved in it. They just literally are targeting those street vendors because they have cash, and obviously those are kids that's doing that. Those are literally kids that's doing that. No grown folks are doing that. But let's continue.
And smoke screen to cover the fact that they have been practicing this vile anti-black racism, and they have fortunately got called out for it.
Now, I think I saw the clip you're referring to regarding reparations. Mm-hmm. So they had two arguments, and the first argument was other people deserve it first. I think they named like Native Americans and Hispanics.
The hell? Yeah.
Now, and then
for them to say that Native Americans deserve reparations, they get reparations. Like, people don't realize that they get reparations and they got land, and to say that Mexicans deserve reparation is totally false, because the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, there was a transfer of $15 million that was transferred to the Mexican government for the land that the U.S. acquired. And I'm not saying that is fair and that was a fair amount, but I'm going to say this, that the treaty was signed and the money was transferred, you know, so that is their reparations. So if they can't get nothing more, it's like you already signed the treaty deal. But let's go ahead and continue.
And like when we say, wall start, like when FBA say, yo, that ain't your business, they say I'm a taxpayer, it is my business. So what's your response to both of those comments?
Well, number one, the Native Americans did get reparations, and they do get reparations. They get all types of money now, so they've already been paid. Also, in some of those treaties, like the Treaty of 1866, some of those Native American tribes owe us reparations. This is in the treaties because...
Oh, and I didn't know that. This is something that I'm going to need to look up. I had no clue about that. So that's something that I'm going to go ahead and do my research on. Because, yeah, I had no clue about that. But let's go.
Were enslaved by many of those tribes. Some of those tribes were working with the Confederacy, enslaving us. So Native Americans, anytime somebody says a Native American needs to get reparations, no. Native Americans, they haven't paid their bill to us. Some of the red ones. Because also, let's be clear, many of the Aboriginal people here were black people. All of us did not come directly from Africa. Only a small percentage of black people actually came from Africa here to North America. Many of the black people who were brought from Africa mostly went to the Caribbean, South America, Central America. Only about 3 to 6% came here. There were already black Aboriginal people here.
You heard the Caribbean, South America, and Central America. All of those places where they represent that Rasa stuff, bettering the race, lighten up their lightening the skin color, but let's go ahead and continue.
Americas who mixed in with the African people and got reclassified as Negro, and those became the foundation of black Americans. So we built the country from scratch. We created the primary wealth of this country, so we are supposed to get first dibs at reparations, nobody else. Reparations is a black thing that foundational black Americans are supposed to receive.
Yeah.
And that's it. I'm going to go ahead and end it right here. And just with me closing, I'm going to just say this, that Poetic Flacco did a great job asking Tariq Nasheed these questions. And I was seeing that a lot of the people from La Raza that had a problem with Tariq Nasheed coming back on No Jumper, talking to Flacco, a lot of those people were saying all types of crazy stuff, like, Poetic Flacco is like practically just like a cheerleader for him, and that No Jumper should have had AD interviewing Tariq Nasheed, and it's like, why would No Jumper have AD interviewing Tariq Nasheed? AD don't really know much about Tariq Nasheed, which is what he said in one of those podcasts, that he doesn't really know much about Tariq Nasheed. And just from looking at that video with No Jumper in American Cholo, AD was not a good representative for black people in that interview. I wish that AD would have just, I'm not saying that he should have bickered and argued with the guy, but I do think that AD should have gave him a little bit more pushback and challenged him a little bit more on, the anti-black rhetoric that he spills in his content. But just like AD didn't know much about Tariq Nasheed, I bet you he didn't know much about the American Cholo guy. So that's why I say AD wasn't a good representative for black people in that interview, because if he was, he would have did his research on the American Cholo guy, and he would have been able to, ask him different questions and challenge him on a lot of the stuff he said, but he didn't. It was just kind of like AD just was coming to just, keep the peace. However way the peace was going to get kept, he was going to keep it, So it's good that Poetic Flacco did do this interview, because he asked some very, very important questions that a lot of people wanted to hear. Now, if the Rasa feels like that, Poetic Flacco was just a fanboy and he didn't ask any important questions, that's here nor there. And I would love to know what some of them would ask Tariq Nasheed if they were given the opportunity. But I'm going to go ahead and end it like this. It's the Go Mike Podcast, where the mic is golden. This is a podcast. I'm your host, Mark Paul, and I'm out.